the Shout Loud podcast, bringing the artists you love onto your headphones. Hey guys, and welcome to another Shout Loud podcast. I'm sitting here with Employed to Serve. How's it going?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Yeah, good to hear, man. All good.
We're here in Weinheim today. It's a very sunny afternoon. And this is your first one in Germany, or how often have you been over here with Employed to Serve?
Yeah, we've been here like a few times. So first time in Weinheim, but like trying to think now. We've played Leipzig, Berlin, Wiesbaden quite a few times. Karlsruhe. Is it Solingen? Solingen?
Yeah,
Played there a couple of times as well. Quite as. Yeah, no, it was called the Cow Club or something like that, wasn't it? It was like a small little like DIY space. But no, like we've played Germany quite a few times. But yeah, first time here today though, so it's cool.
It's cool. So you've done some headline shows here as well as support shows for Surrey from the Path, for example. Yeah. How is the audience different, would you say?
Do you want to go for this one?
They're definitely more active because we're kind of used to people just sort of standing and nodding. But this crowd definitely up for like moving around and sort of moshing, so it's quite nice. But yeah, they've been really like welcoming because you never know when you're a support band how like the headline band's like crowd's gonna deal with you. But yeah, like, they seem to like us, so it's cool.
Yeah, and like so maybe like not like overall a younger audience, but there's definitely definitely younger people coming to these shows than we had before when we were like playing our sort of like show, because when we came over and we're headlining, we were playing like not always squats but sometimes squats, and like for like teenagers to come or something like that for example, it's quite difficult, whereas these shows it's been like obviously quite welcoming to like a younger audience, you know what I mean, all ages venues and stuff like that, so that's cool, you know.
I was just going to ask, what's your target audience, or what are the people who show up to your gigs, especially here in mainland Europe as opposed to the UK?
Like everyone basically. I mean, we can't. I mean, you know, we're a heavy band, like, and we're quite abrasive, like with the music we play. But we kind of pride ourselves on the fact that we've been able to tour with a very diverse selection of bands. So it's cool to play with Stray, like on this run. But then we could go home and like maybe play with like a pop punk band like Milk Teeth, or you know, and then play, I don't know, maybe with like an even heavier band like I don't know, trying to think, like Dying Fetus or something like that. Like we wouldn't say no to something like that either, and I think it's really cool and works to our advantage being able to play with like such a diverse collection of bands, really.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like bands that do that a lot as well, like sort of Every Time I Die, you see them in so many different bills, and I think that works really well for them, and I kind of feel we're not too far removed from that band, so it kind of works well.
Yeah, and it keeps it interesting as well, you know what I mean? Rather than being on like a bill all the time with like bands that are kind of similar to you, you know. So yeah, no, I would say like, yeah, when it comes to like our sort of demographic we're trying to hit, it's just anyone who's into sort of alternative and heavy music, really. You know what I mean? Yeah. Anyone. You
can kind of tell as well, because when we do our headline shows, there's literally people wearing like Converge Thou t-shirts, Hatebreed, or like Turnover, or like Run for Cover bands and stuff. There's literally just such a variety in different ages as well.
Yeah, I think you named a good example there. I mean, Every Time I Die had Knocked Loose support them last year. They played here in Germany, so that was also pretty diverse and younger lineup with Higher Power and another band, I forgot the name, but yeah. So,
but yeah, that's cool, and that's what I like to see as well. Is like bills with like a diverse mix of bands. You know, keeps it interesting.
No one wants to see the same 5 bands at night. Do you know what I mean? They want something to like change up. Otherwise, it's just like it's pointless.
I feel like there's a big difference between the hardcore and the metalcore scene in that regard. There's some lineups, in my opinion, that do not vary as much if you go to a metalcore show as opposed to like a hardcore or post-hardcore show. What's your comment on that? Do you have any opinion?
Yeah, so I think the only time where I feel like sometimes it can be like a bit samey, and this isn't like putting any bands down because I'm really into my hardcore and stuff, but like if you're playing like a straight up kind of hardcore show, sometimes you might get like a few bands where you feel like it's in a similar kind of style, so you're a bit like, oh, okay, I feel like I've had my quota of this for today, you know what I mean? But you know, my preference is always to keep it like a kind of mixed bill, you know, have some similarities, sure, but like try and have a selection of bands where everyone's bringing something a little bit different to the table, you know. That's, you know, my thoughts on it. But yeah, like I feel like the hardcore scene sometimes, like especially if you go to like a hardcore fest or something like that, it can be a little bit like lots of the same thing, you know, bit overwhelming. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's get to your record. The Warmth of the Dying Sun was released last year,
Yeah.
and especially not just the album artwork is more colorful, but also the music veers into other territories. What made you embrace that influence, or why did you go into this musical direction?
Okay.
Well, it's just a natural progression. It's inevitable that you'll kind of go in the direction of the bands that you listen to at the time. And obviously, as musicians, we've grown, and in terms of age, we've grown. We listened to a lot of Deftones and Will Haven, as we always have done, but it felt like they were more like sort of relevant to where we wanted to go during the writing of this new album. Sort of things like bands like Slipknot have always been like a band listening kind of thing. So yeah, it's just sort of natural. It was never a case we wanted to change. It was just this is how it works, and we just started writing together, and this is the direction it went in.
Yeah, like we just really wanted to try our hand at sort of writing like some. I know it sounds like really lame to say, but it's not. Writing some songs and stuff. With our first record, we did like it was all very chaotic, and like we were very influenced by like Botch and Dillinger Escape Plan and stuff like that. And we thought like we don't want to do like another record where we're just like doing more or less the same thing. I feel like when you're going to do a new album, you need to bring something new, to the table. And it does flex a different musical muscle. It is like, I'm not saying that we achieved this, but I feel like it is hard trying to create like a simpler song where it still keeps people's attention. You know what I mean? Like writing something that's got like a verse and a chorus. It's like there's still a skill in that, being able to make it catchy and stick in people's heads. You know what I mean? And we definitely wanted to have a try at sort of doing some more stuff like that, but keeping it like a good mix still. So there's some songs that are still quite chaotic, and then there's some that are just more kind of groovy. You know what I mean?
That was actually a brilliant lead up. There's one song specifically, Apple Tree, the last song of the record, which feels more like a shoegaze song, or at least it has more of that influence. And you named Deftones. What are your main influences in general for this specific record?
Oh, okay. For Apple Tree in particular.
Sorry, I meant the record overall.
Overall, oh, okay. So sort of like Justine said, like we were listening to like a lot of Deftones and Will Haven and bands like this, and so that's what kind of sort of Deftones definitely sort of influenced that last track. We just wanted to sort of like have a go at doing something a bit different with this one. We also had like a bit of because on our first record, the last song as well was like a bit of a slower, different one. Yeah. So we've kind of kept this tradition going where like on every album we do now, like the last track's going to be like the slight curveball, if you know what I mean, just to kind of like round it off. Which yeah.
Kind of fun, like with this sort of Apple Tree, it's like we love bands like My Bloody Valentine and Slow Dive, so it's just sort of like a homage to that, really, wasn't it? Really, yeah. And obviously Deftones have those kind of songs on those their albums as well. Yeah.
But like overall, I mean, I'd say like as a we've all got kind of different like musical like influences here and there, like which we don't all share, but overall collectively like we all like really dig Deftones, really dig Will Haven, love Botch. Like early Fear Factory has been like another one for like the newer songs we've been writing. Early Machine Head and stuff like that, because we've just got done recording a new album as well. And if anything, it's not like far removed from where Warmth was, but if anything, it's kind of gone in like a more metal direction, I'd say. Yeah, and, taking influence from like the kind of golden era of Roadrunner Records in the 90s, Machine Head, Sepultura, Soulfly, and sort of stuff like that.
Speaking of Roadrunner, you had a tour with Code Orange in April in the UK. How was that, and do you draw inspiration from these kinds of artists, specifically since they're in your age group?
Yeah, I wouldn't say so I'm a fan of Code Orange, and like we obviously make music that's like in a similar sort of genre to them, but like I feel like it's not a case of I don't draw influence from their music to write our music, but at the same time sort of talking to them and sort of seeing what they listen to, it's like we listen to a lot of the same stuff, you know what I mean? That's for sure, and I think that's kind of what's led us to sort of be like playing music that's got some similarities in it. But like no, we really like them and we fully respect them, because it's cool to see other bands just like pushing it really hard, you know what I mean, and hungry for, you know, to grow as a band, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, we've been following them since 2012 when their first record came out on Death Wish, and just been following them ever since, and sort of seeing them at London shows. And we supported them just before our first record actually came out in 2014.
EP came out in 2014,
No,
didn't
but
it?
we were recording when we supported them.
Yeah,
We actually supported them way back when, so it's kind of nice to sort of actually cross paths and kind of, we always seem to be on the same sort of album cycle, but they're one album ahead. So yeah, we're pretty stoked to play with them. They're super nice, and they're just like really driven and hungry, and it's just really nice to see bands like this day and age not being like, oh man, there's no money in music. They're just like, yeah, fucking, we just love touring. We're gonna do it forever. So yeah, it's just nice.
It's cool, yeah, and to see like all the success they had off the last record, it's so nice to see, because it shows that heavy music is in a good place right now. Because I mean, Forever, it's a pretty abrasive record. I know it's got Bleeding in the Blur on it, but like for the most part though, the rest of the tracks are pretty full on, and to see it have that kind of like sort of breakthrough into like a more sort of mainstream market, it's kind of nice to see, because we haven't had bands like that, you know, get that big in a long time. So it's very cool. Yeah, sick.
Yeah, have you listened to the new EP that dropped today, or do you know of it even?
Very briefly, we put it on in the van, but it's been hard to, you know, it's like on like van sort of, but it's got the Corey Taylor guest spot, and like what we heard sounded really cool. Yeah, really cool, and it sounds like they're once again kind of pushing the boundaries with like the electronic aspect and making abrasive music. Really, it doesn't sound like they've, you know what I mean, toned it down at all. It sounds like if anything they're kind of getting gnarlier, so that's cool.
I feel like the first song, I think Three Knives is the name or something, that's one of the heaviest tracks they've ever written. Is like 2-minute onslaught, and there's no pause in it at all. But
full on. Yeah, it's cool, man.
Yeah, so let's talk about your album again and the subject matter specifically. We've been talking about the music, so what's the record about, or is there any story, or just the content? What's it about?
Yeah, do you want to?
So this album's sort of about us being like bummed out about our sort of generation's apathy and just sort of like sense of feeling helpless. Like, I don't know if it's just like mainly social media, but in general, sort of speaking to people, everyone just seems to be like really just sort of down in the dumps about stuff, and like feel like they can't achieve what they've always wanted to achieve, and they're just sort of settling for working in a supermarket job which they hate, rather than sort of like studying or like really gunning for like you know, a career that they really want, or not even like necessarily career, but lifestyle that they want. And I think it's just sort of like our sort of frustration in those songs, and a lot of it sort of like touches upon like things like mental health and I think like those topics basically. Yeah,
and like the over, like Justine was saying, like it covers that, and then like the overall title is like about our sort of like personal situation. So The Warmth of a Dying Sun is basically like, I mean, you want it to be vague so that anyone who listens to it can take away from it what they want to take away from it, but like for us it's a case of like we all just like live for doing this band basically, and you know, we're having a great time and it's all sick, but then there's always just that kind of like, for me personally, like that kind of crushing realization of like, oh, you know, if you can't sustain doing this for forever, you know, it's kind of like, is this going to come to an end at some point? And then, you know, speaking personally for someone whose life has been totally kind of up until this point anyway, like totally all about doing music, it's kind of a little bit like, oh shit, you know what I mean? Kind of like you feel like, you know, you're having a great time, and it, you know, that's representing the sun and stuff, but you feel like, has it got a time limit, and is it going to sort of die out? And you know what I mean, I kind of feel there's like a lot of people in similar situations where they kind of forever living like they're trying to achieve their goals, and they're just hoping that like they can make it work, you know what I mean? So it's forever, you know, that's what the warmth of a dying sun comes from anyway, you know. It's cheesy as it sounds when you're so sort of like upfront about it, but you know what I mean? It's like trying to achieve your goals, but kind of living in the sort of like fear of like, if it doesn't work out, you know what I mean?
It's going to be a difficult question. So what would you say your band stands for as for values within society and things that affect you as individuals?
On the whole, just basically like just making sure you want to do with like what you want to do with your life, and like because I've seen so many people, and me personally, who slip into like ruts in life and stuff when they start accepting like a really mediocre existence, or like, you know, they're not fully happy, and it would be so easy to change their situation, but they don't. So if anything, it's self-empowerment more than anything. Like, I never want our music to come across like egotistical. I just want people to be able to feel like proud of who they are, and feel like they have the ability to do what they want to do with their life. Basically, we're not like a real political band or anything like that, but like we just want to push that message, if anything, what I mean, of self-empowerment, basically. Just feel good about yourself.
Yeah, we just want people to be excited about life and just like be like really stoked on like the abilities that they have like developed themselves or sort of have been gifted with naturally, and just sort of like if you're really sick at martial arts, why not try and play in tournaments? Or like if you're good at drawing, why not try and like draw for companies and make money out of it? I just think there's because like we're sort of coming from a generation where like it's really hard to afford houses and stuff like that, so we've kind of got a completely different situation to our parents, and I think we should use that to our advantage. It's like if we're not going to afford a house anytime soon, why not just like travel or just develop something, a career that you really love.
Yeah, like exactly. And like another thing, like not that we're like particularly outspoken about this, but I feel like particularly with the new record we're going to be putting out next year, it's the case of like we kind of want to be the antithesis of a lot of like this sort of negative, like almost kind of promoting depression in music we kind of see these days, and we kind of want to encourage people to sometimes everyone has shit that they go through and stuff, and I'm not saying you shouldn't address that, but like also I feel sometimes people really like don't take the time to appreciate what they do have, and even it's kind of funny coming from us, because I guess you'd listen to our music and you wouldn't think that necessarily, because it's quite it sounds quite depressing and like but like we get kind of a bit like wound up by this whole sort of like I don't know, sort of Xanax culture and stuff going on at the moment, what I mean. Obviously if people have got problems and they need to take it and stuff, that's cool, but we just see a lot of like promotion of like that kind of culture, and like with the new stuff we just want to be like we said, self-empowering, and not just being depressed about shit, trying to look at like the positive stuff as well.
Does that mean though that the new stuff is going to sound more positive, or is it still going to go down the same?
It still sounds abrasive, but I mean that's just the way I feel though, because when I listen to like angry music, it doesn't make me sad, it just gets me all like yeah, you know what I mean, it's like from whatever age you put on Slipknot or whatever, and you're just like, yeah, let's go, this is sick, you know what I mean. So hopefully it will have a similar effect on other people, and it will just make them raging for a good reason,
Yeah, so speaking of trying things out, you were billed for Lenmania last year. How was that experience overall?
Oh, it was awesome. It was just a brilliant display of all the UK talent we've got right now, and it was obviously curated by Jamie Lenman. So like for those who don't know, he was in a band called Ruben, and he literally lives down the road from us, so yeah, we all like looked up to him growing up and stuff, so it was really awesome to sort of be invited to play his festival.
Yeah, he said, quote, Woking is an angry town. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. But then at the same time, like, it is angry. I don't know, like, it's mellowed out a bit, let's say. I think growing up there, you kind of see the angrier side of it, because, like, it's like anywhere, I guess, you know what I mean? Trouble seems to find you a little bit more when you're younger. But, like, we still live there, and for the most part, it's cool, it's all right.
It's a very creative town. I think Surrey is. I mean, like, we've got, from Woking, we've got us and Palm Reader, and the author of War of the Worlds, H.G. Wells, is from Woking. And the Jam.
From the Jam, yeah, Paul Weller.
Who else? We've got Polar as well, they're from the Guildford area. Yumi at Six are from Weybridge area. So it's like a lot of, I don't know, I think it's the countryside. I think it breeds creativity.
I guess and there's not a lot to do, I guess, so you kind of find other things to keep you occupied. Yeah, But yeah, no, it's cool. I don't mind. I think you grow up with an attitude when you're younger. If you just hate, no matter where you live, you kind of hate it. And then as I've gotten older, I've just been like, oh, you know what? It's okay. It's cool. I can live with this.
Does this lack of occupation kind of fuel a DIY scene?
What in Woking? Sadly not. That's the funny thing. Like in terms of like, I mean, when we were younger, there was a bit more of like a music scene. Like at least like, like a younger kind of one, because all the guys who play in Palm Reader and some other bands, they were like in different bands when they were younger, and there was like a couple of like youth spots and stuff where there'd be like some shows. But I mean, that's kind of gone away now, and like in terms of like alternative culture, Woking is dead. Like it's a rarity you see someone walking around like in a band t-shirt, and if you do, it's like, whoa, you like that band too, sick. You know what I mean? It's like it's not a bad place, but in terms of like a music scene, nothing.
It's just basically a commuter town. Like, people live there to get out of it, like, because it's got like a 20-minute train into central London. So yeah, that's like, it's basically just people coming in and out of it.
Well, at least assuming if you were famous someday, nobody would chase you. That would be an advantage, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely haven't had that yet.
Yeah, so you had a feature on Jamie Lenman's Long Gone. How did that come to be, and how was the entire experience of doing that?
So we started talking properly after Lenmania, and yeah, just kept in touch since. And he invited me to do guest vocals on one of his new singles. So yeah, it's really awesome. And then we filmed a music video in Alton, which is a little town hall, which is like down the road from where I live. So yeah, it was really fun. It's just nice because like. Because when you grow up, you're so used to people being from like London or Manchester or the major cities. So when it's someone's like in your little home county doing music and stuff, it's really cool.
Yeah, so you just mentioned you will have an album coming out next year. What's on the horizon for Employed to Serve during this year and the start of next year?
Well, yeah, just more touring basically. So we've got some UK dates at the end of next month. So we're playing the whole of the last record in full, and that's kind of going to be like the close of that album cycle, and then starting the next one really. So can't sort of say exactly when the new record's going to be out, but there'll be some new music by the end of the year, and then we've got some more tours that are yet to be announced basically. So yeah, just more touring, then the record comes out, and then more touring again. That's the idea, it's the plan.
Nice, we're very excited to hear some more of that, and see you at the show tonight. Thank you very much for the interview. Bye.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to our podcast. If you'd like to stay informed about your favorite artists, then go check us out on our website or social media. The links are in the description box. Cheers, and until next time.